Every day, millions of Kenyans wake up with the same goal: to earn a living, support their families, build businesses, and create a better future. But for many, that journey is becoming increasingly difficult. Jobs are scarce, opportunities feel out of reach, the cost of living continues to rise.
Is immobility the solution, for example? Because they're saying immobility has a potential of creating 200,000 jobs each year.
So it's like 7 people don't have a job out of your class. Only 3 will have a job.
There is need to limit the age of retirement. Why by the time someone is 60 years, huyo mtu amechapa.
We want the government of Kenya to use responsibly the money that we give them fast before raising any new taxes.
How many people exactly are we getting in the job market every year? How many job opportunities are created by? So what is really happening? Why does it feel harder to get ahead? And more importantly, what can be done about it? At the Civic Negotiation Table, we believe that meaningful solutions begin with meaningful conversations. Today, 30 young adults sit across from one of Kenya's foremost economic voices, not merely to seek answers, but to challenge ideas, test assumptions, and imagine a better path forward. Our guest is Kwame Owino, Chief Executive Officer of the Institute of Economic Affairs Kenya, a respected economist and public policy analyst whose work has helped shape national conversations on economic growth, governance, and opportunity. Together, they explore one fundamental question: why is it so hard to earn a living? This is more than an interview. This is more than a discussion. This is the Hot Seat, featuring Kwame Owino, CEO, Institute of Economic Affairs, Kenya. Let's begin.
We know that the biggest public service that the government of Kenya provides, who can guess what's the biggest service that the government of Kenya provides? Or what's the most successful thing that the government of Kenya does? Yes. Revenue collection. You could say so. The government of Kenya, revenue collection, which is right, taking money from your pockets, right? You could say so. That's true. The most successful thing is that the government of Kenya, based on last year's the budget that Honorable Bali read last week, would be collecting taxes. They hope to collect taxes of 10 billion shillings per day, but spend about 3 billion per day. I mean, spend about 13 billion per day. So in other words, you collect 10 and then you borrow another 3. So yes, the government of Kenya is very good at spending money. It's very, very good at spending. Pardon?
Yeah.
Pardon?
So we collect 10 billion,
yes.
We spend 13, so we need another 3
billion, which is basically borrowed. So even after squeezing that much, right? Everything here and there, mobile phones, everything, your M-Pesa transactions, whatever it is, all those things that government taxes, together with your wages and all that, it still needs to borrow another 3 billion to top up the 10 so that it can spend 13 billion per day.
Let me just a moment, even before we proceed, let me bring something. I know the people are really interested. There's a conversation we were having here before you came.
Yes.
And the issue of how many jobs are created per year, how many people get into the job market per year. So we've kept on quoting this issue of a million.
Yep.
How many people exactly are we getting into the job market every year? How many job opportunities are created per year?
Okay. So, first, government doesn't create jobs. Government doesn't. Most jobs are created by people working outside. So remember, let's start with, before we talk about the numbers, we have, you see what is called the labor force, which is the number of people who are qualified to work, to do work, right? In Kenya, classified as people from the age of 17 and above. There are 21 million, about 20.5 million of those based on the National Bureau of Statistics numbers. Of those 20 million people who are working, doing one thing or the other, a few are in college or school, the government employs only 1 million, right? So government provides a lot of jobs in the formal sector, right? But most jobs in Kenya are actually created in what we call the informal sector. People doing their own jobs, you know, your hustles and those things that people do for themselves. Now, if you look at what the numbers say from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, and they have good numbers which we should use as the basis for our education, it's about 900,000 people or so who come in every year who attain the age of 18 or finish school and therefore going back to coming to get jobs. Of those, government absorbs, based on last year, the only people who are employed in government, mostly based on the numbers that were declared, was I think another 17 or 20,000 people in the public sector who were employed as teachers. You remember the teachers who got new employment because of that. So really, in the scale of things, government is only important because government has employees, some of whom earn decent wages, and government has a lot of money. But it is not the job creator.
Okay.
And that's part of the problem. That not all of us can work for government. And that's why I think sometimes I see youthful people argue that all people in government should retire, right? So that you can create jobs for youth. That's not going to work. Let me tell you why. The whole of government is 1 million people underpaid, right? Of that 1 million people, about 400,000 are what? Are teachers. Then another 100,000 or 120,000 policemen. Very important. Both are important. So basically, and if you have 900,000 people coming off, about 800, 900,000 people coming off school or finishing, right? Yes, right? It means that in 1 year, if you wiped out the whole of government and employed everybody who's coming back, assume they have the skills, right? You only employ 1 year worth of the employment numbers. Do you get it?
Yeah.
You only get jobs and spaces for 1 million people. So it's clear to us that the solution is not government employment as a solution to unemployment in Kenya for most youth. The solution means government has to provide space for other sectors to grow. Right. And so when it's picking everybody's money every day and every day, preventing farms from expanding, you see farms closing, then it should worry us, because that means that yes, the job creation market, the job creation is not happening in the places where it should.
Okay, give me the microphone. Let's take the conversation to the people. What is tax? Unajua kuna ile tax tulisoma tukiwa shule. You remember what we used to calculate?
Yes.
But then tukitoka hapa nje, hiyo ndio ile tax kwa tunasoma kweli. Hizi tax ziko mingi hadi unashangaa. Kwani maisha ni tax peke yake?
My name is James. Okay, I have a concern. The government of Kenya has a program, has a fund, tuna Uwezo Fund. I think it was launched during Uhuru's regime. And I believe each and every constituency is allocated money for business support. So do you believe the youth of Kenya are aware of this fund, or do you think accessing those resources for you to get that loan? Yes, they are loans, not grants. Do you believe the youths have that access to that fund?
Even just to make it very clear, I think inaingiana sana kabisa with what Kwame was stating, because we're saying if the government cannot employ everyone, if private sector basi kwaje, then we are saying there are funds available, then why are young people starting these jobs, and what is then the problem, right?
My name is Saror Alan, Majority Leader. I have two concerns. First, as the economist, otherwise that like the NYC, that there's some money that the government is allocating for NYC. Like this year, Waziri John Mbadi has allocated almost 200 million financial year 2026-2027. So where is that money going to? And we are not seeing anything going on that NYC, because that NYC is supposed to be helping the youth to get some employment and some opportunities. If you check on the employment firms, economists, why is that some of the tenders or the contracts have been taken by a few? For example, if I want to apply for a job, maybe for a certain company, they will advertise maybe 6 positions, but you will find that those 6 positions have been rendered to a certain firm as a contract, so that those firms are the only people who are allowed to get those people to work there. Thank you.
Mine is on taxation. Okay, for those of us that are working, I don't think paying tax is the problem. The problem comes in when you don't know where this money is going to and what it's supposed to do. If you look at most SMEs, they pay so much into licensing, and the amount of money that they pay annually just to renew their licenses is a lot. So as a think tank in the matters economy, are there measures that you feel will be recommended or should be recommended to the government so that even those of us that want to pay tax, I struggle paying it, not because I don't have to pay, but because I don't see the need to pay taxes, and I'll continue filing nil returns until further ado.
Do you think taxes affect them? Now, from your angle, you can just share what you think.
Okay, so let me start with the last question. Okay. You pay taxes. I mean, taxes are of different kinds. You pay taxes directly when you work, for instance, right? You pay a direct tax because government takes 30% all the way to 35% before you even touch it. So that's a direct tax, where you have a pay slip or you have an employer telling you that your pay is 100K, but really you only take home 70 because 30% has gone to government. That's a direct tax. But the indirect tax is also paid, especially everybody does. So for all of you here, you came in here by, you communicated for the purposes of this meeting through your mobile phones, right? Every time you buy airtime, you've paid a tax. When you bought your phone, or you got a new phone and all that, you paid your tax, and it's going to change. The way in which you pay for it is going to change and all that. So you pay. Everybody who participates in any economic activity, including food, you go to a restaurant, eat, you pay the tax. So I don't believe that taxation doesn't matter. So that's the first thing that I think you do. You bear the burden. It just depends on where you're participating in the economy. When you're a working person, it's very, very direct, and you see that more clearly and all that. But you pay a tax. Now, I think that, unlike you, you're a very nice person. I think I pay too much tax. Unlike you, I'd like to pay less. You guys want to pay more, that's fine, but maybe let's have that conversation. I want to pay less. For me, I think the amount of taxes that I pay are too high. So let me tell you, for instance, as I told you, I'm old. So I need health insurance. The amount of money that is deducted from my wage every month under the SHA is higher than what my employer pays for me for my private insurance. So it means I'm paying for private insurance twice. It's higher. Right? Pardon? You can't opt out to SHA. You can't. If you work, yes, if you work, you can't opt out of it. Especially for those who are working and you have a pay slip.
It's a forced marriage.
Right? Yes. So there's this forced marriage for me to buy public health care. Yeah, those are awards. Yes. So guys, be knowing, as soon as you get your job, you will be required to do that. But not only that, everybody is required to pay to SHA right now, because if you go to hospital and if you have to use it, you are required to actually have to pay. So basically, that's one. Then affordable housing. They don't even know if I live in a tent. But my money is taken, and I'm told there is no assurance that you're gonna get a house. They don't even know if I live in a tent. They don't know. No, they don't know. Or if I live in my brother's store. They don't know, but they take my money and tell me we're going to construct houses. So, unlike you people, my experience with taxes, when I look at my pay slip, is such a, no, this is too much. It's too much. But that's it. In the place where I work, because I'm a privileged person, for 9 years now, I've been the Chief Executive Officer of the Institute of Economic Affairs. My first job is to ensure that we are compliant with all government regulations, fortunately or unfortunately. So what that means, I am the one who's responsible to ensure that all my colleagues, all the deductions that are required, SHA, whatever, all those things, pay, and all those things are deducted before they receive their wages. And not only deducted, sent to government before the 9th of every month. What that means is I am also partly the government's tax collector. Because I make sure that is done, and I make sure that the payment is paid. So guys, it's not true. I think taxes in Kenya are very high. They are. Look at your pay slip if you earn money. And that is only talking about the taxes that are direct, the indirect ones. You use M-Pesa, you use an ATM card, you have an account and you save money, you travel, there's a lot of taxes. So in addition to the fact that the taxes are high, there's very limited responsible use of Kenyan taxes. So we have two problems, high taxes and irresponsible use. That's not a good position to be in. And that's why conversations about what tax burden do you want to bear are important to me. True. And for me, while people thought that the Gen Z protests in 2024, I keep mentioning it was a painful time for our country. But for me, I think Gen Zs were saying, and the rest of us were supporting them, saying, look, we don't want to be a high tax country with an irresponsible government. We want moderate taxes, and we also want transparency and responsibility. So nobody should ever try to gaslight you. I use that because it's a fashionable thing. By making you look like, no, you are misinformed. I saw a certain member of parliament saying, oh, no, in 2024 people were misinformed. Excuse me, sir, we read those things. Don't try to, well, don't, I'm sorry for using that one, but don't try to take us on a guilt trip that we didn't know what people are. My view is this, Kenyans in 2024 told the government that we want more responsibility and we want moderate taxes, because you cannot give us the choice between paying taxes and being hungry at home. You can't pay taxes and starve, right? So taxes must also serve certain. In other words, government cannot be rich while Kenyans are poor. So that's the conversation that we were having. Now, government tenders. So remember, government tenders represent taxes that government is spending, right? Government collects your money and then it uses it to buy things, right? Sure. Some of which we need, sometimes we don't need them, but government buys. So what I think could happen is the transparency of government tenders is one of the things that is most, I think that's what you're claiming. So that what has happened is we have people who have, what shall I say? I'll use this word, have access to government tenders in ways that are not correct. Right? They just get tenders, including people who get paid for air, right? You guys have heard about people who are paid. So when you look at the Office of the Auditor General, one of the constitutional offices under Chapter 15, you look at it and some of the findings that they make about millions of Kenya shillings that are paid out for people who supplied air, we have to worry. And for me, I want you guys to take this from me. Don't take it as incitement, take it as civic duty. We want the government of Kenya to use responsibly the money that we give them first before raising any new taxes.
Don't be mean,
As I told you when I was coming here, the government of Kenya spends 13 billion shillings per day. Now, in my mother tongue, we were very literate people. I won't tell you where I come from, but we were very literate people. But we don't have the word billion in our mother tongue. Instead, we say you count and count and count until your jaw breaks, because the number is big. A billion is 1 and 9 zeros. A trillion is 1 and 12 zeros after it. So if somebody gave you 1 trillion shillings, assuming, let's just do a trick, a thought experiment. I like to speak to young people like this. Since you guys just left school the other days and so you're good with math, if somebody gave you 1 trillion shillings and you are spending 1 million shillings per day, do you know how many days it would take you to spend the entire amount? 2,700 years. In other words, you're spending, if you had 1 billion shillings when Jesus Christ died, right? You'd have 700 years more to spend before the money is exhausted. Now the reason, wait. Now the reason I'm mentioning that is to tell you that these are huge sums of money. And we understand. We have a responsibility under our constitution to fund government services. But that does not mean we fund government services by starving ourselves. That's one. And two, funding government services to do irresponsible expenditure on their side. So government, we need to have a conversation, a compact in Kenya about respecting public money, but also paying for public services without starving ourselves. We need to be able to do that, to be honest. And I guess that's the idea that we're talking about. Now, about the NYC. Okay, one of the things I'd like you youth to be clear about, as I told you, I'm much older now. So if you line up Kenyans in terms of age, the average age in Kenya is 19. So when you're my age like this, you're somebody of my age, you are older than 70% of Kenyans. Someone like myself, he's older than 70% of Kenyans. So I'm an old guy. I mean, but one of the things that worries me, and let me say this, I speak to my friend Okoth very often. One of the things that worries me is we can make debates about how to improve the country without prejudice against old people. So to say that a person who's 80 is running the National Youth Council, that by itself is not a bad thing. But what you should be questioning is their competence, not their age. Because the reverse of prejudice against old people is prejudice against young people. Do you guys see it? And that's part of the reason that we had 2024, where people were saying, what can these kids tell us? Do you see that? So we need to be a society that is comfortable with having discussions with each other without prejudice. You tell them, I want to listen to your argument, not your age. Do you guys get that? Or because prejudice of that kind is, after you've done age, what will you do next? Ethnicity or height? Or, all those things that we end up shaming people for. So that's the one thing. But we can ask ourselves, you said that the National Youth Council was given 200 million. I think if that's true, the 200 million is for running the council. But look at it. Even if the money was to give youth cash to spend, right? I told you that about 1 million youth, it's about 900,000 in the data that I read, leave school every year, based on the number who sit KCSE, right? If you assume that. If you were to distribute 200 million across them to start businesses, how many of them, how much would each of them receive? How much? Like 200 shillings. So just bus fare from home to here. Now it's telling us, what I want you guys to understand from this, the idea by government that you create jobs by taking high taxes from the youth and their parents and then pretending to give them loans is not going to solve the employment problem. Do you guys see it? It's not. It's not going to solve the employment problem. Be it Hustler Fund or whatever other things that's going to solve. So ask governments, we need to solve all the problems. In agriculture, what is required? If roads are bad, people can't take produce to market, whose responsibility is it to build a road? It's the government. So let's have that done, right? Okay. On the other side, if education is, as we all understand, some of you are in university, if loans are not coming through and government said loans are supposed to come through, what is supposed to happen? You're supposed to be adequately funded, right? Make sure that those schemes are working properly. So that's it. I'll try and conclude by telling you people, running public affairs is a sophisticated thing. It's not one thing, so slogans will not work. You guys get what I'm talking about? Anybody who wants to run your lives, and you guys have much longer lives to lead than me, right? Everyone who's running your lives has to give you a clearer view about how they improve Kenya than just simple solutions such as a fund. Did you guys get that? One fund here and one. Our society needs to solve many problems at the same time. Safety. Remember, my colleagues were in All Saints Cathedral last week when somebody decides that they're taking advantage of youth, giving them 1,000 shillings to go and hurt other youth. You guys get that? So a government has to solve many things. You can't tell us that we are building stadiums. Build them if you must, though if it was up to me, we would stop building stadiums. We'd be building schools and dormitories instead so that kids don't ban each other. But the point is, a person who comes to discuss with you and the conversations that you all should have, as I had, he gave me a rundown of some of the things you are getting the impression that Kenya is a very sophisticated place. And whoever wants to run, like all of you, some of you are planning to run for office, you know that the solutions you bring are not going to be simple solutions which are slogans. That's very, very important. All right.
Very much.
Thank you.
My name is John Chiri. Thank you, Kwame. I'd like you to speak to two things. One is the present and the future of advocacy, especially when it comes to policy. The things that young people died for in 2024 have slowly been passed right now. And the method we used then seems to be no longer working in terms of, advocating, because, I work with Kipesco, I co-founded Kipesco, we work with young people, young leaders, and one of the things we take them is, advocating, lobbying. But what is the future of that, or rather even the present, for young people, so that now the things that we've stood against right now, we can be able to make sure that even if they are passed, there is proper engagement, with the government, and we've been given proper pathway so that they're implemented when we also understood and even agreed to take part in whatever they are doing.
I think Kwame really like this because I'll bring back the microphone back to you. I think this is a conversation that everyone is trying to avoid, right? In Kenya, there are businesses, when you're Kwambia, you have to pay in cash. So then you wonder, there's a burden of tax imeachwa kwa watu wengine. Who is holding these other people accountable, and why is it so difficult? And every time we raise this thing, you'll always be attacked by certain statements, right? So then also the other question that is bringing that is very important is, you think our system as a country is really supporting Kenyan young people to be what they want to be?
Yeah.
When you mentioned about the Indian system and how they work, and when we talk about Isili, we know we're talking about just the Somali community and how they're running their businesses. Do you think that is what's happening our government and our own people here?
Since that is such a pressing one, why don't you
address it first?
And remind me not to take too long. So the first thing is this. You see, if a government imposes a tax, right? It should impose a tax that it is able to collect. There's no reason to impose a tax and then start blaming other people for doing something else. So that's the first. Secondly, I think the existence of ECD is not a bad thing for Kenyans. Let's be clear about that. If you go to ECD and somebody tells you, for instance, that withdraw instead of doing this, right? What are they responding to? They're responding to high taxation. And they're trying to give you value by telling you, look, this option will be cheaper and more competitive. Competition is not a bad thing in any economy. It's a good thing. Now, I am not defending somebody who's cheating on tax, regardless of where they are, whether it's in Isili or Siaya, where my grandmother's home is, or any other place, right? But the existence of Isili and some of that behavior that you are saying here is a reflection of an oppressive tax system, so that people are finding ways to cope. I will tell you one of the things that also noticed this year. I personally, for instance, am not registered for M-Pesa, so you can guess, right? Not just because I'm old, but because I don't want to mix my transactions on calling with my financial transactions. I don't want the same guy to know me. He knows how much I earn and whatever. That's one of them. But also because it just doesn't work for me. But one of the things that happened is when they started to tax people on M-Pesa, last year's withdrawals were actually lower than the previous year. So taxes affect behavior. That's a fact. What has happened is when people know the government is following all your little money and trying to tax it, you behave in a way that people respond. Taxes, you're taught as a student of economics, is a tax causes a distortion. Because a tax takes away from somebody and it shrinks the size of the market. That behavior that you've reported happening in Isili is a reflection of people responding to higher levels of taxation. And that's why a conversation around taxation in this country is worth having. That's not the same as saying that I support tax evasion, which is illegal. But somebody can organize their business activity in a way to reduce their tax obligation. And that tends to happen when you have a complicated tax system such as the one we have. I would wish that one of the things that the Kenyan youth could build a profile around is the most successful economies in the world, right? Including Singapore, where the president wants us to be, right? Are actually very low tax economies. So if you want to follow Singapore, why don't we follow them with everything? We can't just be following them with stadiums and airports. Let's go the full hog. Yeah. Let's go accountability. Yes, and accountability as well, yes. And sending to jail corrupt people, right? Including relatives of ministers.
Allow me to throw something in. When you mentioned about Singapore, I remember in 2024, every time they want to raise taxes, they say we need to be like Singapore.
Yeah.
But every time we call for accountability on the street, they say, let us not go the South Sudan way. So then you wonder, when it comes to accountability, tunapewa another example. But now when it comes to collecting, these are the examples.
One of the things that I find our leaders a bit irresponsible about is kutuuzia uoga, right? That we are always given the impression that they are doing such a good thing to keep this heaven And if you have a different opinion and you're expressing it, you are trying to make us Somalia or South Sudan or now DRC and stuff like that. I think we can't accept that. For me, I think that any form of agitation is acceptable, right? That is valid under the constitution. So we will tell them, South Sudan doesn't have our constitution. Somalia doesn't have our constitution. Remember, for our constitution as well, people died. So we've already paid the price for our constitution. We now want to enjoy its fruits. So don't let anybody make you guilty for having an idea that you want to express. Tell them, I mean, the days of Kutuzia Woga should end, to be honest. Anything that is allowed under our constitution, you know, the Bill of Rights, which is quite something that Kenyans really fought for, should not be compromised about. And you should not accept lectures from whoever. Can we call it a chief, a president, an MCA, anybody telling you how to interpret your constitutional rights. That's not their role. And you refuse to accept it. So let me end with this question of Joe on the future of advocacy. For me, I think that, so let me tell you one of the things that happens. At the Institute of Economic Affairs, we calculate what we call the National Taxation Day. I mean, Tax Freedom Day. So we take all our pay slips and ask ourselves, if government is taking 32.5% or 35% from us, right? It means between January to April. You guys get it? From 1st of May, that's when you get your freedom. From May to November, I mean from May to June, from May 1st to end of the year, you're working for yourself. The first 4 months of the year, you're working for government. That's what it means. You guys get it? If you yes. And that tax freedom day means that you, for the first 4 months of the year, you're simply working to pay the government of Kenya that money. And then after that, you work for yourself. Meaning that the government of Kenya, without caring where you sleep, where you do, and whether you're even safe, right, simply tells you, for the first 4 months, you just work for us and then go back home. If the government of Kenya has already laid a claim on the first 4 months of your income, it cannot be let to go free of advocacy, however harsh. Now, 2024 might have been a special year, but regardless of that, it told us certain things, right? That we need to make government aware, not to push us too far. That's one. Two, we need a government that is able and willing to listen. But conversations around how this country is governed within the constitutional space must continue for the rest of our lives. Nobody should ever tell you that, no, now time is over, go back. No, we must continue to have conversations about everything we have an opinion about. And that's it. So yes, it might not be enough, but we need to supplement it with other things and getting in up there. For me, one of the areas where I think that we all together as Kenyans need a little bit more pressure on, in Kenya, we concentrate so much on the figurehead, which is the presidency. I think the people who have it very, very easy, and yet we, through our taxes, buy them a very fine life, are members of parliament. So I'm not claiming we ban parliament. No, that's going too far. But we give them an earful, make them know what we want. Now, if you saw yesterday, there's been a difference. Yesterday, 40 MPs, now, there's a claim that it was all political. 40 MPs had a different view about the finance bill. That's the beginning of change. So you know the people who voted for what you want and the ones who did not, right? And our votes, when the time comes, should reflect who has been voting with our interest. Do you guys get that? Yes. So the future of advocacy, in my view, is still bright, and it is anchored and protected by the Constitution and our Bill of Rights. So don't ever give up. And I know that's what they want. People who like to oppress others always want you to believe that advocacy is useless. Idle people, paid by foreigners, you have no jobs. You know those kind of things that they say. Talking about what you feel in the shoes in which you walk as a businessman is essential for you. It's a very, very essential thing. And finally, if you're running two businesses and one person provides a cheaper product than another one, right? Maybe your markets are different. But you can also ask yourself, what can I learn from the guy who's doing business in a way that brings in greater clients and all that? Because it's all about learning and doing that. So yes, let's put in some information to actually understand why are some people able to run businesses cheaply, more cheaply than others. If they're following the law, we can copy their business models.
Okay, let me bring the microphone back to you, but before Kwame came, there's a conversation we were having and people talked about the mismatch in skills. People even talking about some courses ni kama zimeanza kupotea kazi, si ndio? There are courses you do na unashangaa after school what happens next. But then again, also looking at the people here, there are people working, there are people like even to work online, run their businesses. So maybe can we pick the next set of questions or comments to be about the solutions to this problem?
Yeah.
Because some of the questions we're asking, I mean, we have all these conversations all the time, but now what next then, right? Any questions maybe on how to address a certain specific issue, please?
I'm Onsongo Mumani, and I'll be very specific. One, on the formal sector, we've been witnessing most of the firms and companies moving away from our country due to our economic policies, right? And that has led to unemployment. I mean, many people are losing their jobs. So what economic policies can be put into place that will effectively get them to come? We can get these foreign direct investors to come into a nation, build their farms, to run these things. Number two, I've been reading most of the economic ideologies from political parties, and one thing I picked from KANU is the 24-hour industrial economy. With the taxation rate that we are having currently, how long is it supposed to take us to effectively have a running 24-hour economy? To the informal sector, we have people that are definitely selling their things, working their businesses. How can we ensure that we have tax ceilings to protect the businesses so that these people are working? Can we have an introduction of tax ceilings, and how effective can that be? Apart from that, the last two, we have microfinance institutions and affirmative action funds that have been running for quite a long time, and we are seeing that most of these things are going rogue with time. So what are we supposed to do from our positions, apart from advocacy, that can definitely help us go much into utilizing them properly? And from the microfinance institutions, because they have been used recently, especially the upsurge, to harass many people, especially these businessmen, taking away their things, and what sort of protection can we offer as a nation to these people to ensure that the economy is running?
My name is Valentine, and I'm really interested in the light of the talent economy or the creative economy. I believe that each and every one of us has a talent or something that we can be able to do. So the question will be, how will the creative economy make a difference in the current economy? That is one. The other thing is I will also want to understand how is it that we can be able to make our economy cheaper, in the sense of, if we're using 13 billion, how can we be able to use at least 7 billion? I mean, we all know someone cheaper. Why not Kenya?
Nice question. And by the way, Kwame, just to add on that, do you think it is by design? Do they care really? Because I'm trying to think of it from this angle. Hata wewe says ukifanya job, let me make it easier. So, if you are working and you are earning a salary of, let's say, 20,000 per month, nyumba kiasi gani unaweza ishi how much? 4,000. But Kenyan government inafanyaje? Ina earn 20,000 lakini ishi kwa nyumba 25, na unashangaa hiyo nyingine inatoka wapi? I mean, just the basics unashangaa. Is it that there's something hidden somewhere that we don't know? Or what exactly is happening? Think.
Okay, so let's start with Valentine's. So the creative economy, in my view, the creative economy is already here. And it's also affected by the same things that affect other businesses, in the sense that, as you call them, creatives, or those who are in this subsector, are already doing a lot of creative work, but it is either unprotected, or because Kenyans have other burdens, we are not able to consume as many of those products as we otherwise would. So the first thing you must learn is taxes do something. Taxes take away money from private people, which they could have used for the creative economy, but now government is using it to buy something else, whether it's buying affordable housing or whatever those things that they call. Do you see that? So that's the first part, because taxes are not an option. So when you make taxes mandatory and they are high, it makes creative consumption an option. Do you guys get that? Yes. So that's why the tax argument about what level of taxes we want is an important argument we must have. And in my view, I think the idea should be we don't want a rich government taxing poor people. And it's all of us. In Kenya, we are given the impression that there are some people who are rich and let's try and get to them. To be honest, most taxpayers are actually just laborers and people who work up there. So basically, that's one of the things that affects the creatives. Now, how do you make a difference? Our view at the Institute of Economic Affairs is that the government of Kenya can actually run, right, on 10 billion shillings per year. Why? By doing the core things that government should do. Our government is a busybody. There are certain things that only government can do. One, schools. It does a decent job. Now, schools can get better, but it does a decent job. That all of us are here and we can understand each other and speak. It is a credit to the fact that we have a school system that other countries, it's not perfect. I'm not saying it's perfect. Other countries say, okay, it's possible to actually build a decent schooling system. So that's the first thing. Public security. And I don't know if you feel secure. I don't. But regardless, those are things that if government concentrated on the basics, you see what I'm talking about? Basics, roads, water, right? Nairobi has had for more than 10 years a problem of H. pylori. Because water is not available and there's mixing of water here and there, so there's just an epidemic that is hidden that people don't understand. People don't say it. It is. Because it passes around, water is unsafe and stuff like that. All those are responsibilities of government. It's also embarrassing when we have floods and then people have to stay in their offices until 2 a.m. because they fear they'll be driven away, right? So it's more than just having a governor who's with it and looks nice on TV. Don't be impressed with certain things like that. When people are working too hard on their image and not doing their real job, they have a problem. It means that their focus has shifted from what should be. If government only did the basics, it is possible to run a decent government on 10 billion shillings. I'm not kidding. Why? Consider that there are 50 million Kenyans, 52 million Kenyans. I think there are 38 million Ugandans, 36, 37 million Ugandans, and another 60 million Tanzanians. The government of Kenya spends more money than Uganda and Tanzania put together for a population of 100 million people. Do you guys see why? So obviously, there's something about here that is telling us that money is not being spent according to priorities. So if the priorities were the basics, just the basics, I don't want the government to run a meat factory. You know the government of Kenya runs a meat factory? Yes, the KMC is a meat factory. And it slaughters fewer cows than the abattoir in Dagoretti. But this one is run by government. Now, I mean, so it's stuff like that. The government of Kenya also runs a cement company, you know, a couple of cement companies and stuff like that. So if government did basics, the basic things that only government can do, keeping us safe and all that, that's it. You could also go about it in that way. Of the 1 million employees of government, 400,000 are teachers. Are kids being taught in schools? Okay, most of the time kids are taught. Teachers could do better. The other 100,000 of that.
Yeah, we are friends.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. Well, good. Sorry, teachers. Some teachers can do better. Okay. Some teachers can do better. But what I meant was, if you see the footprint of government in terms of where it touches lives, schools, the other part is security, and the other part is health, right? I don't think any Kenyan cares that the government of Kenya runs a meat factory. We don't even want it.
Most didn't even know. Right?
Yeah, well, we didn't even know that it's called the KMC, Kenya Meat Commission. But basically, so what we need to say is government should do basics and then leave our money to us so that we can decide where to buy meat. Do you see that? Instead of taking your money and using it to run a meat factory or to run a cement company. And there are cement companies.
Then you have to buy the meat again.
Well, yes, you have to buy it. Yes, you have to buy it again. I mean, it's good quality, but the point is, there's no reason for a government that has schools that are leaking, that has no classrooms, to be running a meat factory. That's wrong prioritization. So what we need to do is to shift our government back. What are the basics, regardless of political party, regardless of who's in charge, regardless of who's the president? The problems we are asking you to solve is not a made-up problem like the housing fund. That's a made-up problem. And you can tell they're coming up here and there's nobody who's occupying them. But we want to make sure that kids are not going to school and sitting under trees. And that I have seen myself. It's not something I'm talking about. I have seen it myself, where kids are either sitting behind trees or you have a classroom smaller than this. Standard 3s are facing this side, standard 4s are facing this side, and it's the same classroom with one teacher. So they have 2 chalkboards, one on this side. So when this teacher is teaching, the other kids are really trying to concentrate because it's the same one. When you have that basic things and you have 12 million primary school kids and another 5-6 million secondary school kids, right? The priority cannot be building houses that nobody lives in or a stadium. So our conversations should be about building that prioritizing government to do the right things. And on Songo, as I finish here, you're asking me about microfinance. You see, microfinance is that solution which is sold to us. It has its big contribution and it's big, but not all of us will solve the unemployment problem through a microfinance business solution. Not all of it. So why do we need microfinance? For obviously people with business ideas, but they need startup capital or some capital which can happen, right? The reason I disagree with the funds that government have established, whether Wezo, Hustler, the new ones, all the other funds, Nyota Fund and all this, is this. The government of Kenya is the biggest owner of banks in Kenya. The biggest bank in Kenya is KCB, owned by the Gava, right? You know, there's another bank called the National Bank of Kenya, also owned by Kenya Gava. Of course, in collaboration with them. Part of it is by another bank, cooperative bank, government has an interest and sits on the board. All those other things, government of Kenya is all over with banks. So if you own banks, why don't you ask the banks that you own to lend to the youth so that it can be done by banking officers and financial people who can make the decision about what business ideas to whatever. But instead, they want to create on this side hustler funds, where, as I saw some people claim yesterday on social media, and not everything stated on social media is true, but again, not everything stated on social media is a lie. Someone saying that somebody used my ID and procured a loan on the hustler fund. Did you guys see it? I saw it. So why should the government be establishing a bureaucracy to do that? Because we have a government that likes to be busybodies. They want to do everything, forgetting what the real role of government is. So we need to help government define what we think are its roles. And its roles is not to, in my view, do stadiums, do football matches, and leave soccer teams to plan their matches for themselves. Teach children, treat Kenyans, keep us safe, provide water, provide roads, provide electricity. That's a big enough task to do for a whole generation without having to start selling cement and wires and meat and even milk. Yeah.
Kwame.
Yeah.
Just 7 minutes, actually 4 minutes left in this panel before we let you go.
Yeah.
Issues have been mentioned about training and preparing young people for the job market. Then there's also the other issues about funding the opportunities that young people are looking for. If you were to change 1 or 2 things about these 2 key things, what would it be?
For me, I think education. One of the things that you see is there's a huge demand in Kenya for Kenyans to actually seek. Kenyans like to learn. And that's a good thing, by the way. It's a good thing when people want to learn because it means you want to improve yourself. And if I was sitting as a leader, I would like that because it means you're going to have an enlightened population. People who like to take care of themselves is a good thing you'd support. So the education sector in Kenya would probably be a little bigger. And by being bigger doesn't mean I'd employ necessarily more teachers. That is sometimes necessary, but I'll distribute them better as well. So that's the first. Secondly, classrooms. In fact, if you ask me, instead of the affordable housing, we should have built a classroom in schools. Classrooms and dormitories. You saw some dormitories and schools. And in my life, I've never seen a triple decker. There are schools in Nairobi that have triple deckers. So what does that tell you? That there's a congestion and there's a space problem. And schools, as you know, between now and 2040, you're going to have 1 million children joining class 1 for almost the next 20 years because of the population surge that we have. And that's not a bad thing. And that's not bad.
They don't know to give, but that's what they're telling you. They're not going to do it.
No. It's not a bad thing. Of the 53 million Kenyans who are alive today, right? 26 million are younger than 19. So they're younger than 19. So if you distribute them evenly among 19, it's about 1.1 million people in every age group, right? 1, 2. So those guys will need schools. Yeah. They need schools. So that is already in our. That is already in the reality, regardless of what we do, because those Kenyans are already alive. So what that means is the demand for schools is going to really, really expand. And it's an important thing, but not only because it's going to expand, it's also a constitutional right for basic education in Kenya. So it's what government should have done. But this clever trick that we wanted houses that nobody wanted, you know how it's gone. I don't think it's gone well, but it's really hurting people's wages because people are giving a lot of money to houses they're never going to receive.
So in terms of preparation, that is your take. Then in terms of funding, would you propose any other models to keep on funding young people who have like innovation ideas? And
I think that yes, if you want to fund innovation ideas, so if the government of Kenya is collecting 10 billion per day, right, in taxes, instead of wasting all that money by the 3 billion additional that is spent on, to be honest, some of it is leaking, some of it goes out and stuff, you'd establish a proper youth fund, but not run as a government parastatal. I'd simply have banks, right? Banks have a youth channel. You see the way banks have channels for women and all that? Just have a youth channel. Bank, an existing bank, the government has. You place that money in and you say, fund ideas that the youth want to generate. And you'd be applying for it in the same way that you'd apply for a business loan. It will do two things. It will discipline people with seriousness. It would have an expanded view of things from creatives. It would have people who want to build schools, I met some kids a couple of years back who were interested in ECD, but they wanted to do a very interesting kind of ECD that's not the ones that counties run, so that they can do like a play group and they can have like a creche so that mothers can keep kids and all. Very, very interesting idea. But of course, no bank would fund it. So the idea would be if this was available, then they do it exactly entirely as a business. And young people can take huge leaps, right? Taking a huge idea. And some of those ideas will flourish and, of course, not just create jobs, but also help with economic growth. Thank you.
All right.